Our top story, the safe return to Earth of the space shuttle Atlantis. A predicted weather front approaching the Mojave Desert held off, allowing Atlantis to land safely at Edwards Air Force Base. Tom Mintier reviews the landing and the shuttle's secret 4.5 days in space.
Early Sunday morning, there were some doubts that the space shuttle Atlantis would be able to return on time at Edwards Air Force Base in California. Weather conditions were not favorable. Winds gusting above acceptable limits and the threat of rain kept all eyes on the skies.
Clouds, 15,000 scattered, 20,000 feet, a thin broken layer of clouds.
But weather conditions quickly improved and the all-military crew of Atlantis was cleared for a landing.
Capcom has just given the crew the go for the deorbit burn.
Somewhere over the Indian Ocean, Atlantis Commander John Creighton fired the shuttle's orbital maneuvering rockets while flying upside down and backwards at more than 17,000 miles an hour. The rocket firings are designed to slow the shuttle down and allow a safe re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. For NASA workers on the ground, there was little to do but wait, all eyes looking toward the sky for the first sign of Atlantis.
Flight Dynamics Officer reports that Atlantis looks good coming onto the heading alignment circle.
The touchdown prevented NASA from suffering its third landing delay in as many missions and clears the way for the April 12th launch of the shuttle Discovery to deploy the Hubble Space Telescope.
Main gear touchdown. Nose gear touchdown.
Because the Atlantis mission was classified, there was no post-landing press conference to congratulate the crew.
Capcom Steve Oswald greeted the crew with congratulations on a great flight, guys, and welcome back.
The primary goal of the flight was believed to be the launching of a new military spy satellite into an orbit that will carry it over more than 80% of the Soviet Union. The public was not allowed to watch Atlantis return because the mission was classified. The gates at Edwards Air Force Base were locked. In the last few weeks, NASA and the Air Force have been negotiating to change that policy, but no decision was reached in time to allow the public in this time. The next secret mission is scheduled for early July, and it's possible the gates could be open then. Tom Mintier, CNN, reporting.
The Philippine city of Tuguegarao is now sealed off as authorities try and find a mutinous governor. Rodolfo Aguinaldo and hundreds of armed followers seized a hotel in the city, took hostages, and battled government forces. At least 14 people reportedly died in the fighting, including a top military official. The trouble started when officials tried to arrest Aguinaldo, who is one of a number of people charged with rebellion in last December's bloody coup attempt. He'd been suspended from office pending a trial. Philippine President Corazon Aquino deplored the attack, calling it an act of cowardice and treachery. In the Soviet Union, voter turnout is reported heavy in regional elections in 3 key republics today. Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev was among many to cast ballots in Moscow. Now, he's predicting the Communist Party will do well, but others aren't quite as sure. For the first time ever in local parliamentary elections, voters in Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus have a wide choice of candidates, all the way from communists to opposition leaders. Eileen O'Connor talked with voters in the Ukraine.
Lenin and his party still preside over the city of Donetsk, a typical example of life in the Ukraine. The republic produces the largest percentage of the industrial output of the entire Soviet Union. Much of the country's food is produced in the Ukraine. Naturally, the assumption is that voters here can really make a difference with that much economic clout behind them. Sasha and Lena Novikov say that assumption is wrong. Sasha joined thousands of miners this summer in a central square in Donetsk on strike. He and Lena showed us then what their life was like. The family cramped into 3 small rooms with only outdoor plumbing and no hot water. On this voting day, the Novikovs study the list of candidates, hoping this election will be different and perhaps make a difference. But Lena says nothing has changed. These elections are a game, she says. I am sure all these people have already been picked by the party apparatus. In order for a vote to be democratic, we should know who the candidates are, Sasha says. There was one not with the party, he admits, but he's old. What will he do for me and my children, Sasha asks. Both he and Lena think perhaps the miners should strike again, but they say the last one didn't make much difference. Even the recent hunger strike has now ended, with the miners' demand for party resignation still not met. Like many Ukrainians, the Novikovs did cast their vote. They say they crossed out all the names in protest. Despite that, they and many of their neighbors vowed to be back to vote in the next election, hoping that Mikhail Gorbachev's reforms will eventually change the system, even here in the Ukraine. It is not mining families like the Novikovs, but party bureaucrats trying to cling to power who could prove to be President Mikhail Gorbachev's greatest obstacle yet. Eileen O'Connor, CNN, Donetsk, in the Ukrainian coal basin.
A U.S. serviceman has died in Panama after being wounded in an explosion at a Panamanian city discotheque Friday night. Witnesses say two men shouting, "Long live Noriega," hurled a grenade into the nightclub. 28 people, including 16 American soldiers, were injured in the attack. It was the first apparent violence involving Americans since the U.S. invaded Panama December 20th. No claim yet of responsibility. U.S. lawmakers visiting South Africa say anti-apartheid sanctions should not be lifted, at least not yet. This weekend, several members of Congress met with government and opposition leaders, including President F.W. de Klerk and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Now, they described the commitment to diffusing racial tension as encouraging, but said sanctions should remain in place until apartheid and oppression are absolutely abolished. Vice President Dan Quayle is applauding Nicaragua's lame duck president for promising a peaceful transition to democracy. In a CBS interview today, Quayle called the outgoing leader a new Daniel Ortega, who appears truly committed to democracy. Bush administration leaders say the U.S.-backed Contras should and will demobilize eventually.
My own personal view is that clearly what we'd like to do is, as the Chamorro government comes to power, to see both the Contras and the Sandinistas sort of demobilized and the weapons put back in the arsenals and reduce the level of violence that unfortunately has existed in the country now for some time. But how that actually happens, who puts down what gun first, how they in fact demobilize, I think is a subject they're going to have to work on themselves.
Ortega told CBS News today he would abide by the Constitution in turning over leadership of Nicaragua. A meeting between Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir and members of his divided government adjourned today without any agreement on a U.S.-backed Middle East peace proposal. Shamir's Likud party is blasting the plan. Deputies say they will not bow to U.S. pressure. Israeli television had reported Shamir wants to accept the agreement, which allows Palestinians from the occupied territories to participate in the negotiations. The government meetings are expected to continue right through Wednesday. A senior Iranian envoy today reportedly discussed efforts to free Western hostages held in Lebanon with Syria's foreign minister. The Associated Press reports the meeting was apparently called to coordinate efforts between Iran and Syria to gain the release of all of the Western hostages. And most of the hostages, who include 8 Americans, are believed to be held by Shiite Muslims loyal to Iran. President Bush says progress was made in trade talks with Japanese Prime Minister Toshiki Kaifu. The two leaders wrapped up a weekend summit in California's Palm Springs yesterday. Kaifu pledged action on improving trade imbalance with the U.S., but some congressional leaders say promises from the Japanese simply are not enough.
Till we are willing to take definitive actions, the Japanese will be unable to change their society. I would submit to you the Japanese politicians are not able, in present circumstances, to make the changes in their own society that many of them know need to be made unless we are willing to take a definitive action to help them do that.
Some lawmakers are urging President Bush to retaliate against Japan by imposing some trade sanctions. Well, civil rights activists from around the nation are gathered today in Selma, Alabama. They're commemorating the 25th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, a day that became a turning point in the civil rights movement. Back in 1965, 600 people staged a voting rights march from Selma to Montgomery. On the way, they were brutally assaulted by police. The attack outraged Americans and prompted our Congress to pass a voting rights law. Demonstrators today are protesting recent events in Selma's school system that they say are still racially motivated. Residents at a Los Angeles retirement home are planning a protest as well. Officials have decided to close down their establishment. But to the former left-wing activists, fighting for a cause is what they do best. Patty Panaccia reports.
The Sunset Hall retirement home in Los Angeles is atypical of most. It was established to house left-wing activists. Most of the 20 people now living here were liberal leaders of the 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Many causes that we all thought, there were so many of us, you know, did not involve us personally at all. We just knew that that was a just cause and that we owed it to society.
Sadie Tompkin was manager of the People's Daily World, the leading communist newspaper in the U.S. Waldemar Hilly was a prominent political songwriter and musician who toured with, among others, folk singer Pete Seeger.
I was concerned about using music to help the progressive causes.
Now, these veteran activists are fighting a cause that hits closer to home than ever before. Their board of directors has voted to sell the retirement home, claiming it's been losing money for 17 years.
We wanted to close it ourselves before the creditors closed it.
The board went against a vote of its membership when it decided to close down the home and sell it to a developer for $1.2 million.
The board has the responsibility for operating Sunset Hall. The membership does not.
Whether the residents overcome what may be their last battle will be decided by a judge.
We do have an attorney, and we are going to take it to court. Do fight the good fight, you know?
Residents have been told they have 3 weeks to vacate the premises. If the court efforts fail, residents here say they'll do what they know best. They've planned a demonstration on their scheduled eviction day. Patty Panaccia for CNN, Los Angeles.
The Ukrainian government is reportedly planning to shut down the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The Washington Post says the republic's legislature has passed a resolution calling for this action. Now, operations at the facility are to be phased out over the next 5 years. At least 31 people were killed in an explosion and fire at the plant 4 years ago, the worst such accident ever. Up next on CNN, Dollars and Cents. Back after this.
Years ago, I fell rushing to work and really hurt my ankle. My doctor recommended the pain reliever in prescription Motrin. Today, he recommends Motrin IB for pain.
Motrin IB, no prescription needed.
When work gives me a pounding headache, Motrin IB has the strength I need.
One Motrin IB is as effective as 2 regular aspirin.
My headaches simply stop, and it's much gentler on my stomach.
Motrin IB, doctor-recommended pain relief.
The 1990 Toyota Celica. Its totally new shape will please your sense of design. And the way it moves will stimulate your sense of excitement. The all-new Toyota Celica. You'll love what it does for you.
Decades before women fought for their role in the workplace or their right to vote, Mutual of New York sold the nation's first life insurance policy to a woman. It's that kind of innovative thinking that's provided 146 years of uninterrupted dividends for the present and annuities and pensions for the future of a new generation of mothers, daughters, and sisters, and their fathers, sons, and brothers.
Mutual of New York. Money for life.
Thousands of hotel workers have walked off their jobs in Hawaii. Picket lines formed at 11 major hotels yesterday after last-ditch negotiations simply collapsed. The union is seeking increased wages, and management calls the two sides miles apart. The hotel says they intend to operate with management and non-union workers, and some have started offering discounts to their guests. Caviar is one of the true gourmet foods, but it is not kosher. Now an Israeli research team has invented ersatz caviar. Linda Scherzer has that report.
Till now, Russian caviar has been a food for people who enjoy the finer things in life and have the money to pay for them. But in the laboratories of Israel's Technion Institute, food scientists have cooked up a batch of imitation black gold. And this stuff isn't only cheap.
It is kosher.
Professor Uri Kogan and his colleagues spent 3 years developing imitation fish eggs cheap enough for mass consumption. His recipe includes kosher fish, vegetable oil, salt, and preservatives, and has one advantage over the real thing.
This one can withstand cooking temperatures, and it can be made into soups and sauces.
But what about the taste? We asked the owner of one of Jerusalem's finer restaurants to try Kogan's imitation. Kurt Rothschild knows caviar. He's been serving it for 30 years.
To check the caviar, you put some lemon. If it loses some color, so it will be dark.
The verdict?
So he passes the test. He doesn't lose any color. It's good.
But this food expert claims it loses marks for texture. Caviar, he says, has no imitation.
When you put it in your mouth, it has this very disgusting feeling of plastic.
Less cultured palates give it an enthusiastic thumbs up.
It's very close to the real thing.
That's very good.
Would you like some more?
Yes.
Of course, even real caviar is an acquired taste. For those who do appreciate real Russian caviar, prices can be steep, up to $50 an ounce. Kogan's imitation will sell for $2 an ounce. His motto,
You too deserve caviar.
Linda Scherzer, CNN, Jerusalem.
A bargain. When we come back, a look at weekend sports action. Stay with us.
When airmail took 96 hours to go from San Francisco to Hong Kong, guess who already made a fax machine? When a letter took 10 days to get from New York to London, guess who already made a fax machine? When it took 6 days for a postcard to go from Chicago to L.A., guess who already made a fax machine? So if you want the most experienced fax in the world, guess who you should call?
This is a machine designed to keep you on time. And this is what makes it tick. People. Working together with clock-like precision, each dedicated to keeping you on schedule. Time after time after time. American Airlines, the on-time machine.
I'm Jerome Jurenovich with Headline Sports. 7th in the scoreboard, Duke is trying to grab a share of the ACC title. Purdue plays Michigan. Lionel Simmons leads LaSalle against Siena. The Illini go after their 20th win on the year, and Loyola Marymount runs against Portland. As these top 25 teams battle it out to see what order they will be seated in the NCAA field of 64, 3 teams have already made it into the tournament. Robert Morris won the Northeast tournament, Princeton took the Ivy League crown, and Coppin State is in after winning the Mid-Eastern tourney. One team who won't be going to the field of 64, no matter how well they play over the next 2 years, is Maryland. According to a published report, the Terrapins will be banned from postseason play this year and in 1991 under NCAA sanctions against the men's basketball team. Other penalties include a ban from television next season, the return of tournament money to the NCAA, and limits in scholarships and recruiting visits. The NCAA cited 18 violations during former coach Bob Wade's 3 seasons at Maryland. The violations include providing money and a leased car to players and providing false information to NCAA investigations. There are a pair of matinees on the professional hardwood. The Bulls go after 8 wins in a row, and the Suns look to hand Cleveland its 4th straight setback. On the ice this afternoon, the Devils and Capitals are battling for the final playoff spot in the Patrick Division. Red Hot Boston skates against Chicago, and the Kings look to make up ground on Winnipeg in the Smythe Division standings. Paul Azinger and Fred Couples finished Saturday's 3rd round of the Doral Open in the dark and the rain, and they finished as they started, in a tie for the lead. Azinger duplicated his eagle birdie start of the 2nd round and once held a 3-stroke advantage, but he bogeyed the 18th hole to finish with a 70, equaling Couples' score on the round and leaving both men at 12 under par. Mike Reed dropped birdie putts on both the 16th and 18th and scored from 10 feet on the 17th in the 6 under par 66 that left him a single shot back. Industrious Lee Trevino fired a sensational 5 under par 67 in the Vintage Senior Invitational to walk away with a 3-stroke lead over 8 under par Don Massengel. The Dallas Cowboys have signed 12 Plan B free agents, including wide receiver Dennis McKinnon of the Chicago Bears. After catching 28 passes last season, McKinnon was one of the most widely sought of the NFL's 490 Plan B free agents. Jerome Jurenovich, Headline Sports.
What makes a woman unforgettable? That you can reach 50 and not care. Glamour!
Practice, practice, practice.
Revlon nail enamel. Irresistible colors. Irresistible shine.
Her mind. Surrounded by lots of naturally curly hair.
Irresistibly long-lasting. What makes a woman unforgettable?
A little luck and the right shade of red.
Unforgettable Revlon.
Residents in Asheboro, North Carolina are going bananas over the first birthday of baby Kwanzaa. The local zoo's little gorilla turned 1 year old yesterday and was given a huge birthday celebration. 200 people showed up for the party where Kwanzaa was presented with fruit and veggie in the form of a birthday cake. Children sang and brought him birthday gifts. Kwanzaa is the first lowland gorilla ever born in captivity in North Carolina. The Hoosier Dome will be filled to capacity for the 4th annual Farm Aid concert. Tickets for the April 7th event in Indianapolis were snatched up yesterday in less than 90 minutes. John Mellencamp, Willie Nelson, and Neil Young again organized the concert, which will benefit America's farm families. About 60 acts are scheduled to appear, tentatively including Don Henley, Lou Reed, Guns N' Roses, and 4-time Grammy winner Bonnie Raitt. Composer George Gershwin has been dead for almost 50 years now, but technology is bringing some of his lost music back to life. Jeannie Mose has that story.
George Gershwin may be in his grave, but from it he gave us his ghost. You are listening to Lost Music, rescued by a Gershwin scholar.
Well, I'm obsessed with Gershwin.
Artist Wodehouse was especially obsessed with what are now obsolete piano rolls. In the early 1900s, Gershwin created over 100 of them, but when the player piano virtually disappeared, so did Gershwin renditions of songs like Kickin' the Clouds Away. Now the piano rolls saved by a few collectors have been transformed by computer technology into something you don't need an antique player piano to play.
Basically, we're seeing on the screen the piano roll in digital format, electronic impulses.
A small company called Micro W can turn a piano roll into a floppy disk that runs about $30. The system uses a light beam to scan the piano roll, creating information a computer can read and play back through modern instruments.
It's an exact replication of Gershwin's playing.
This is Gershwin.
Yes, this is Gershwin. When you hear it played, it is Gershwin.
Did you have an emotional reaction the very first time you heard them played back?
Well, when I heard them on the disc clavier, I flipped out. Because when you see the keys go down, it's like magic.
The disc clavier is a high-quality regular piano that can play computer discs.
You can see Gershwin continuing to play.
Play the exact notes with the exact pressure Gershwin used on the keys when he created this long-lost piece 75 years ago.
Oh, you would love this. This is the whole point. You would love it.
And as the notes are played, you can see them notated on the computer screen. You can even print out a score.
We have intelligent musical information here. It's not just pictures of notes on the screen. There is an intelligence that knows that this is in the key of E flat.
Up until now, the more than 100 Gershwin piano rolls were known to only a few. What is the big deal for you with this?
The big deal is this great little piece of music that everybody can enjoy, really.
It is as if you are being treated to a live performance in your living room by a performer who lives no more. Ginny Moe, CNN, New York.
That's our report for this half hour. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marty Aarons. Around the world in 30 minutes, this is Headline News.
TNT just had a great idea. Let's call it hats.
Cameras ready?
Off.
Lights are ready.
To Hollywood. We've got a week. No, 2 week. Wait. A month full of movies. And specials all about Tinseltown. Plus 50 years of Oscar-winning stars. And stories.
Boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl.
From the country's, no, the world's dream factory. Join TNT for Hats Off to Hollywood. Weekday morning and afternoons all month long.
From Turner Broadcasting System, this is Headline News.
Do you realize just how much difference there is in life insurance rates from one insurance company to the next? For instance, if you're in good health and don't smoke cigarettes, Geico Life Insurance may be able to save you as much as 50% off the cost of your life insurance. That's right, 30, 40, 50% off what you'd have to pay for a amount of coverage elsewhere. And not just this month, but year after year for the rest of your life. Savings like that are well worth looking into. So if you need $100,000 to $1 million or more of quality term life insurance, you owe it to yourself to check with Geico Life. Get the facts fast by calling now for this free information package, including a personal coverage proposal that shows you just how much your savings might be. There's no obligation, no sales pressure, and it could be a real eye-opener. 800-257-1333. Toll free. Call Geico Life Insurance for your free information package today. 800-257-1333.
In California's Mojave Desert, a smooth landing for the space shuttle Atlantis. In the Philippines, troops launch a nationwide manhunt after a renegade governor implicated in December's coup attempt battles soldiers. And in Selma, Alabama, activists relive a turning point in the civil rights movement. Headline News, I'm Marty Aarons. It was a picture-perfect landing for the space shuttle Atlantis today. After a 4.5-day mission in space, the shuttle touched down smoothly at California's Edwards Air Force Base about 2 hours ago. The Pentagon imposed a news blackout on the secret military mission, but sources say the crew successfully deployed a $500 million spy satellite. Next, NASA will now be concentrating on an April 12th launch of the Space Shuttle Discovery. That will deploy a space telescope into orbit. Armed forces in the Philippines have been put on nationwide alert today. They're trying to find dissident Governor Rodolfo Aguinaldo, who was indicted last week in the December coup attempt against the Aquino government. Maria Ressa reports a bloody clash broke out as officials tried to arrest the governor earlier today.
In the latest challenge to the Aquino government, about 600 rebels, led by regional ex-governor Rodolfo Aguinaldo, took government officials and civilians hostage at a hotel in Tuguegarao. Tanks lined city streets about 250 miles north of Manila in the provincial capital of Cagayan. This is the political stronghold and province of Senator Juan Ponce Enrile, who was arrested last week in what was seen as the strongest move by the Aquino government since the December coup attempt. Enrile, Aguinaldo, and others were indicted last Tuesday. Fighting began when government troops stormed the hotel. Brigadier General Oscar Florendo, who carried Aguinaldo's arrest warrant, was killed in the encounter along with several others. Aguinaldo was suspended last January as governor of Cagayan province for his open support of the sixth and bloodiest coup attempt. About 200 of his men have surrendered, but Aguinaldo escaped during the fighting. Maria Ressa, CNN, Manila.
A U.S. serviceman has died in Panama after being wounded in an explosion at a Panamanian city discotheque Friday night. Witnesses say the two men shouting, "Long live Noriega," hurled a grenade into the nightclub. 28 people, including 16 American soldiers, were injured in that attack. It was the first apparent violence involving Americans since the U.S. invaded Panama December 20th. No claim yet of responsibility. A delegation from Nicaragua's newly elected leadership travels to the U.S. today. The officials are expected to ask the Bush administration for $300 million in emergency aid to help rebuild Nicaragua's battled economy. But they're also expected to seek twice that amount from other countries. The White House says it will help, but Vice President Dan Quayle says Americans and American aid is not a cure-all.
We will meet the demands of what are necessary, and we'll help Nicaragua with direct assistance, but there is no substitute for the reforms that Mrs. Chamorro has to take place. Just writing a check will be of help, but the true reforms are what will be lasting.
Quayle is also praising outgoing Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega, saying the lame duck leader is now committed to democracy. Ortega is promising to peacefully relinquish the presidency to Violeta Chamorro, but he says his political life is far from over.
I'm going to carry out opposition within the Constitution. Right. Peaceful opposition within the legal channels, within the open spaces opened by the Sandinista revolution in this democracy that gives the right to mobilize, to strike, to freedom of expression, freedom to present claims. Within that framework, I'm going to carry out my opposition.
Ortega did not directly say if he will turn over control of the Sandinista-controlled military, aid, and police force to Chamorro. Millions of people are casting ballots for thousands of candidates today. That is the situation in 3 Soviet republics as communist lawmakers face tough challenges in important local multi-party elections. Soviet leader Gorbachev calls today's voting a people's referendum. And we get more on the story now from Steve Hurst.
Mikhail Gorbachev looking rested and fitter than he has in months. He, his wife Raisa, and their granddaughter in their voting day best, preparing to cast ballots in their home district, the exclusive Lenin Hills region of Moscow. These local elections will seat 1,800 legislators in the Soviet republics of Russia, the Ukraine, and Belarusia. Gorbachev and his wife were warmly welcomed, as might be expected. Given their ballots, they headed for the voting booths. She's saying they're all full. We'll have to wait. And And wait they did. Gorbachev and his countrymen are banking on these local elections to oust old-style communist bureaucrats. After casting his ballot, the Soviet leader spoke briefly to reporters.
The essence of it is that it is a people's referendum on perestroika. I do hope people will come forward and take greater responsibility for themselves.
And voters seem to be doing just that, carefully studying the candidates, voting for the person and not their Communist Party affiliation. Voters knew they had the head of the Communist Party to thank when they, for the first time, marked local ballots displaying a variety of candidates vying for each office. And so these local elections at thousands of polling places like this one are not necessarily a vote for or against communism. Rather, they are pitting a new breed of politicians, whether communist or independent, against old-style party functionaries. After casting his ballot, poet Yevgeny Yevtushenko predicted a big victory for the Gorbachev forces.
I'm absolutely sure. Giant factory bosses and some apparatchiks, it will be their big loss, I'm sure.
Party membership was not a factor for this voter.
What's really important for me is that something good and useful is done by my candidate.
The vote count began as the polls closed Sunday night. The results in this land of limited computer power won't be known for at least 2 days. Hundreds of runoff races are expected. And in the Soviet Union's 3 Slavic republics, Communist Party domination of local politics hangs in the balance. Steve Hurst, CNN, Moscow.
Well, part of the Soviet Union enjoys peaceful elections today. Another region is dealing with bloodshed and violence. Today, security forces reportedly sealed off the city of Uzbekistan after troops and demonstrators clashed violently there. Officials say at least 1 soldier is dead. There's also word a regional Communist Party leader was stoned to death during the unrest, but Soviet officials deny that. Uzbekistan has been a site of ethnic tensions in recent days. A meeting between Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir and members of his divided government adjourned today without any agreement on a U.S.-backed Middle East peace plan. Shamir's Likud party is blasting the plan. Deputies say they don't and won't bow to U.S. pressure. Israeli television had reported Shamir wants to accept the U.S. proposal, which allows Palestinians from the occupied territories to participate in negotiations. The government meetings are expected to continue right through Wednesday. President Bush hopes trade talks with Prime Minister Toshiki Kaifu spur Japan to drop barriers to U.S. goods. The leaders' weekend summit in California produced promises and goodwill, but no concrete plans on reducing the nearly $50 billion U.S. trade deficit with Japan. And Congress is taking a wait-and-see approach.
I would put specific goals for entry into their market out there, as we did in the Gephardt Amendment, and say that if we don't reach those goals in a specified period of time, then tariffs will go on Japanese products across the board coming into the United States.
Gephardt says the overall trade relationship between the two countries will not improve until the U.S. takes a much firmer stand. Civil rights activists from around the nation are gathered in Selma, Alabama now, the place Jesse Jackson calls the Bethlehem of the civil rights movement. The activists are remembering the past and trying to make changes for the future. Today they honored the 25th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. Back in 1965, 600 people were brutally assaulted by police as they marched for the right to vote. Today activists are still demonstrating against racial discrimination, marching to protest recent events in that city's school system. America's future Thomas Edisons and Benjamin Franklin's met with Vice President Dan Quayle today. He visited the Westinghouse Science Talent Search in Washington to show the Bush administration's commitment to science education. Eugenia Halsey was there.
It's not every teenager who gets to explain his science project to the Vice President of the United States.
So I use molecular genetics techniques to find one gene that's necessary.
But then these are not your average teenagers.
I proved a second pathway for cholesterol in this process.
These are the 40 finalists in Westinghouse's annual high school science talent search.
the contest that has produced 5 Nobel Prize winners. This year, the finalists have documented damage to the ecosystem from ozone-depleting chemicals, shown a biochemical role for cholesterol and the onset of blood vessel blockage, and studied AIDS. Specifically,
reactivity of AIDS-infected hemophiliac patients to synthetic peptides from the hypervariable GP120 loop in the V3 region of HIV-1.
As finalists, the students got a tour of the nation's capital this week, including a photo session beneath Einstein's statue and a meeting with the vice president. Quayle congratulated the group for helping President Bush move toward his goal of making American students first in the world in math and science by the end of the decade.
You in this room are making that come true.
But someone who's been a champion of the sciences a lot longer than Quayle thinks the Bush administration's education policy is off track.
1951 Nobel Prize winner Glenn Seaborg, chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission under Presidents Kennedy, Johnson, and Nixon, says becoming #1 by the year 2000 is unrealistic unless teachers are paid more and science programs upgraded.
It's going to be very difficult without spending a lot of money. And President Bush wants to do it through just resolve and, you know, trying harder and so forth.
Some of the finalists agree.
If President Bush is really into making America #1, which he seems very sincere about, he should divert funds to scholarship.
There should be more programs to enhance the abilities of these students who have an interest in science.
And more money, say the students. Something they'll know all about come Monday when $140,000 in prize money is handed out. Eugenia Halsey for CNN, Washington.
The Ukrainian government is reportedly planning to shut down the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The Washington Post says today the republic's lawmakers have passed a resolution calling for that action. Operations at that facility are to be phased out over the next 5 years. At least 31 people were killed by that explosion and fire at the plant 4 years ago. Nuclear radiation was spread over a wide area. Well, up next, dollars and cents. Stay with us.
A mild March day over most of the country today with temperatures of 50 degrees or warmer. The cooler air will be found around the Great Lakes with just a few snowflakes.
The test of time. When it comes to long-term investing, an important consideration is how a fund performs over time. That's why Fidelity Investments thinks it's time you found out more about Fidelity's Magellan Fund. Magellan is ranked #1 of all mutual funds for 10-year performance, beating the competition. No other fund has this long-term growth record, aggressively investing in common stocks, seeking outstanding growth. Of course, past performance is no guarantee of future results. But with this growth record, shouldn't you consider Magellan Fund for your long-term goals? Whether you use it for your child's education or for your IRA, now may be the time to find out more about the Fidelity Magellan Fund. So call today for a free fact kit on America's top-performing stock fund, Magellan, only from Fidelity Investments. It may be time you had Magellan working for you. Call now, 1-800-633-3400, and let Fidelity show you how.
The R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company is lighting up a cigarette competition in Marlboro country. A new brand called Dakota will be on the shelves in Texas and Tennessee within the next couple of weeks. The company has already started running advertisements in areas where rival Marlboro is the most popular brand. RJR has been criticized lately for targeting consumers most vulnerable to health risks associated with smoking. Well, many investors are turning their attention to farming, or at least one aspect of it. A new device in Europe is catching their attention as well. It monitors pregnant cows so farmers don't have to. Patricia Kelly reports.
Gone are the days when this farmer burnt both ends of the candle waiting for his cows to calve. He's one of more than 1,000 cattle farmers across Belgium, France and Switzerland, using an electronic device for round-the-clock surveillance of his herd. A heavy-duty belt strapped to the cow relays information to a control module. The agri-monitor detects and analyzes muscular activity and alerts the farmer to any problems that might arise during pregnancy and birth.
My grandparents used to be farmers, so I was a bit aware of the needs and methods of the cattle farmers. It was not too difficult for me to make the join between this product and the need of the market.
The device has already won prizes for innovation as well as attracting investment from venture capital to develop it.
So far, about $4 million has been invested in this project. Our company, Benevent, has invested $1 million so far, and the European Commission has provided grants to the venture capitalists who have invested in this company for a total of about $400,000.
Today's intensive farming methods means agriculture is big business. The new calf is worth as much to the farmer as his original investment in the mother. The makers say once farmers realize the gadget is easy to operate, they're attracted by the idea of improved returns, peace of mind and time saving. And they get an opportunity to relax, while up to 8 animals at a time are kept under constant observation. The device can be used both indoors and at pasture, does not cause the animal distress or change its behavior.
Time was when Buttercup here would have had a bell round her neck. Now she's got a belt round her belly. They hope that this new technology will revolutionize animal farming, not just cows, but I can safely predict that the farmyard smell of the future will remain the same. Patricia Kelly, CNN, News, Belgium.
Headline Sports up next.
So, Mr. Big Shot Conica copier, no time to do anything but work, huh? Sure, your bosses, they just push your buttons, you go running. But for me, nothing. You're all the time copying, collating, copying. Hey, where'd you learn this collating anyway? Not in my house, you didn't. But don't worry about me. I'll be here, waiting.
Konica copiers, they just work all the time.
What makes a woman unforgettable? Knowing how to whistle.
The ability to apologize even when she's right.
A smile that melts your heart.
Revlon Super Lustrous Lipstick. Irresistible choices. Irresistible luster.
The way her lips invite a man to RSVP.
Irresistible colors that stay true. What makes a woman unforgettable?
If you love her, everything.
Unforgettable Revlon.
Now it eats these things, all right? It opens its mouth, and in it goes.
Peter, no TV till you've had your breakfast.
Now it eats these things, all right? Peter!
Well, don't worry, Mr. Bowen, you're covered.
Thank you.
It's automatic when you use the American Express card.
Lost, stolen, or damaged, a way to protect the things you buy.
The freedom to say and think what we believe, to express our individuality and diversity. That's our birthright, and it's ensured by this document. Join us in supporting the National Archives celebration of the 200th anniversary of the Bill of Rights.
Bob Pacello, Headline Sports. Georgetown home game led Syracuse with 27.
Duke and North Carolina in the ACC. A Blue Devils win gives them a share of the title with Clemson. The Big Ten, Michigan, Purdue. The Boilermakers still have a good shot at the title. LaSalle is going for its 20th straight tonight against Siena. Back to the Big Ten, it's Illinois and Iowa. And this evening in the West Coast tourney, the Lions of Loyola, Marymount, and Portland. Notre Dame's NCAA tourney hopes are still alive. Yesterday, the Irish stunned third-ranked Missouri 98-67 to improve to 15-11. 3 teams clinched berths in the field of 64 last night. Robert Morris is going for the second straight year after winning the Northeast Conference tourney. Princeton won the regular season crown in the Ivy League, which is worth an automatic bid. And Coppin State beat North Carolina A&T to win the Mid-Eastern tourney. A story in today's Sun of Baltimore says the University of Maryland will be banned from postseason play this year and again in '91 for violating NCAA rules under former coach Bob Wade. A pair of games in the NBA this afternoon at the Boston Garden. It's the Bulls and Celtics. Chicago has won 7 straight. And Cleveland, Phoenix, the Cavs trail Atlanta by 2 games for the final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. Last night down in Houston, the Rockets' Hakeem Olajuwon joined Bucks guard Alvin Robertson and Hall of Famer Nate Thurmond as the only player to record a quadruple-double. The Dream scored 29, grabbed 18 boards, blocked 11 shots, and dished out 10 assists in Houston's blowout of Golden State. Utah's lead in the Midwest stands at 3 games. Last night they won their 7th in a row by fending off division rival San Antonio 112-98. John Stockton handed out 20 assists. Karl Malone jammed home 36. 3 afternooners on the ice. New Jersey, Washington. These two skating for the final playoff spot in the Patrick. The Devils lead the Caps by 2 points. The Bruins, Blackhawks, Chicago trails St. Louis by 2 in the Norris. And the Kings, Winnipeg. L.A. is 8 back of the Jets for 3rd place in the Smythe. Paul Azinger and Fred Couples share the lead at Doral heading into today's final round. They're at 12 under par, 1 stroke up on Mike Reed. Zinger and Couples have each already won this year. Couples last week at the L.A. Open. Looking for her first win on the LPGA Tour, Mitzi Edge took a 1-stroke lead into today's final round of the Women's Kemper Open in Hawaii. Edge is 1 under par. Rosie Jones and Laura Davies at even par. Bob Pacello, Headline Sports.
Month after month, expenses add up.
Mortgage, car, secrets.
Now Texas Instruments Calculator, the paper-free printer, lets you see your numbers add up, line by line.
Income taxes, can't afford that cruise. Let's try camping instead.
And when you change a number, you don't have to start over. The paper-free printer from Texas Instruments. There's even a portable. We make it easier to get results.
This is what American Airlines does better than anyone else. Arrive on time. Again and again. In fact, American has had the best on-time arrival record of the 7 largest domestic airlines for as long as records have been kept. American Airlines, the on-time machine.
A few brand new hitching posts are being readied at the National Cowboy Hall of Fame. James Gardner and Clayton Moore will be inducted later this month. Aboard his horse Silver and with his faithful Indian companion Tonto, Moore played the Lone Ranger on TV. Gardner, a native of Norman, Oklahoma, starred in the TV Western series Maverick. Induction ceremonies will be hosted by the rhinestone cowboy himself, Glenn Campbell. 1,000 felines from around the globe are showing their claws in New York's Madison Square Garden. They're competing for top honors in the 6th annual International Cat Show. More than 42 varieties, from the rarest of purebreds to ordinary household pets, are represented. An estimated 30,000 people expected to attend that 3-day event. Well, a new method of education is getting high marks in Granville County, North Carolina. Local teachers have been given more freedom to decide what is taught in their classrooms. Joel Huckmuth has details.
Okay, if you will, please, turn your books to page 143. We're going to talk about Chapter 7 there, where we'll look...
Ron Joyner teaches marketing at South Granville High School. 3 years ago, he voted to let local districts decide how classes will be run, not the state. The concept is called restructuring.
I am able to tailor my program for my students. And I don't have to do the same thing every year. If the kids change. And as my students change, I'm able to change with them.
And I got a guy named Ben Johnson who says that he can come out and talk to your class about
The
environment.
key element of the project is lead teachers. Dave Bennett is one of 8 at South Granville. They spend half their day instructing students, the other half helping other teachers plan curriculum.
I just feel like we're getting so much more respect and such better treatment. We don't feel like second-class citizens as teachers.
For students, the most obvious change has been in their scheduling. They take only 4 classes each day, but each period lasts 90 minutes.
It forces students to maintain their time and maintain their study habits in concordance with something like a college schedule.
90 minutes in class sounds very, very ominous, just intimidating, 90 minutes. But actually, for me, I think the time goes by faster.
As a trade-off for more control of their own curriculum, teachers are subject to accountability. In other words, their students must achieve goals set at the beginning of the school year.
I believe we should be accountable. How in the world can you be in a classroom and teach students and not be accountable for what's going on?
The changes appear to be working. South Granville's SAT scores have risen 85 points in 4 years. They're now above the state average. South Granville is one of 2 schools in the district that have participated in the pilot project since the beginning. The other is Toller Oak Hill Elementary, where writing scores and attendance are up dramatically. School officials there say much of the credit goes to a new computer lab, where students spend 40 minutes each day working on math and reading. Also, writing classes contain students from as many as 3 grade levels, under the theory the younger students can gain from the more advanced.
We all believe that all students can learn, no matter where that child may come from. Every student is very capable of learning, and that has been instilled within our children.
Other North Carolina districts are following Granville's lead. State legislation passed last summer permits all counties to submit their own restructuring plan. Most are expected to do so by the March 1st deadline. Joel Hookmuth, CNN, Granville County, North Carolina.
And that's our report for this half hour. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marty Aarons. Around the world in 30 minutes, this is Headline News.